She was 37 weeks pregnant with twins, sweat beading on her forehead as another contraction slammed into her. Victoria Jonathan clutched the hospital bed rail, trembling while her phone flashed 3 missed calls from the same number, her billionaire husband's private line. Each one had gone straight to voicemail. The labor nurse's eyes narrowed at the monitors, unease written all over her face. "Mrs. Caldwell, is someone coming?" Victoria dialed Maxwell one more time. One ring, then silence. He had deliberately turned off his phone while his wife was giving birth to his children. But what would unfold in that delivery room would shock everyone, especially the best friend who was about to step in and alter 3 lives forever. Before revealing how a pharmaceutical billionaire worth $4 billion could abandon his family at their most critical hour, and how his college roommate became the father these twins truly needed, hit subscribe and comment where you're watching from, because this story proves that money can buy almost anything, except a conscience. 3 years prior, nobody could have predicted this moment. Victoria worked as a pediatric nurse at Mount Sinai, dedicating herself to saving sick children. She lived in a modest Brooklyn apartment, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and found joy in small acts of kindness. That's when Maxwell Caldwell entered her ward. At 35, he had built Caldwell Pharmaceuticals into a $4 billion empire, starting with a single revolutionary diabetes drug patent. Fortune called him the Mozart of medicine, a business genius orchestrating the corporate world like a symphony. He arrived that day for a ribbon-cutting ceremony, the company funding a new children's wing. The board demanded their golden boy shine for the cameras. But Maxwell noticed what no photographer did. The nurse who stayed by a crying child, missing the ceremony to hold a 7-year-old's hand through a procedure. "You skipped the ceremony," he said later, catching Victoria in the break room. "I had work to do," she replied, eyes fixed on patient charts. While the world bowed to Maxwell, Victoria treated him like an obstacle. He was captivated instantly. What followed was a romance straight from the tabloids. Maxwell pursued Victoria with the same ruthless intensity as a corporate takeover. Private jets to Paris for intimate dinners, Broadway shows rented out entirely for them, a Times Square flash mob proposal with 500 dancers and a 10-carat diamond ring. The video went viral within hours. Their wedding at the Plaza redefined luxury. Victoria's Vera Wang gown became the year's most searched, while celebrity guests filled the ballroom. The New York Times called it the American dream meets modern royalty. But behind the glitter, darkness lurked. The first fracture came 6 months after the wedding. Maxwell's company was developing a groundbreaking cancer drug, demanding 18-hour days and constant international calls. "It's temporary," he assured Victoria before leaving again. "Once we get approval, everything changes." When Victoria discovered she was pregnant, she set a special dinner: candlelight, Maxwell's favorite wine, sparkling cider for herself, and tiny designer shoes beside his plate, a hint impossible to miss. But Maxwell reacted like a boardroom competitor, not a father. "Pregnant?" he asked, face hardening. "This wasn't in the 5-year plan, Victoria." "Children come after the European expansion. Plans change," she whispered. "This is our baby, Maxwell." "Your child. Timing is wrong. The company is at a critical juncture. I can't afford distractions now." Distractions. That's what he called their unborn children. When the ultrasound revealed twins, Maxwell's expression turned from cold to frozen. 2 heartbeats, 2 tiny forms on the screen, and all he could say was, "This changes everything." And not for the better. That night, Victoria lay alone in their king-sized bed, hand pressed against her growing belly, heart racing, wondering if fairy tales ever warned that Prince Charming might choose his kingdom over his queen. The disappearance didn't happen in a single night. It crept in, subtle and relentless, like someone fading from a photograph 1 pixel at a time. First, Maxwell missed the 12-week appointment, an emergency board meeting in Chicago, he said. Victoria sat alone in Dr. Patricia Winter's office, watching other couples hold hands, sharing laughs, while her own partner was absent. She told herself it was fine. There would be other appointments. By 16 weeks, Maxwell sent Jennifer, his 23-year-old assistant, in his place. The young woman lingered awkwardly in the waiting room, typing furiously, occasionally glancing up with an apologetic smile. "Mr. Caldwell sends his regrets," Jennifer mumbled, reading off her screen. "The Tokyo merger requires immediate attention." Victoria watched the ultrasound monitor alone, witnessing her twins' first movements while a stranger sat outside, glued to emails. The technician asked, "Shall we wait for Dad?" Until Victoria finally said, "He's not coming." By 20 weeks, Jennifer dropped the pretense of excuses. She simply appeared, laptop in hand, nodding silently whenever Victoria's name was called. It was during one of these solo appointments that Victoria first noticed Julian Morrison. He sat with the pregnant woman, holding her hand, making her laugh at something on his phone. When her turn came, he sprang up immediately, arm around her shoulder, supportive, attentive, everything Maxwell wasn't. Victoria saw him several more times in the following weeks, always with the same woman, always present, always kind. Curiosity finally broke her silence. "Your wife seems lovely," she said one afternoon, gesturing toward the examination room. Julian laughed warmly. "My sister, actually. Her husband's deployed, Navy. Someone needs to be here for her. Someone needs to be here." Those words struck harder than they should have. "You look familiar," Julian continued, studying her face. Recognition dawned. "Wait, you're Maxwell's wife, Victoria, right? I was at your wedding, Julian Morrison. Maxwell and I were roommates at Princeton." That conversation changed everything. "How is Maxwell?" Julian asked. "I haven't seen him in months. We used to grab drinks weekly, but lately—" He trailed off, reading Victoria's expression. "He's busy," she said cautiously. "The company is expanding." Julian's face shifted between understanding and disappointment. "Yeah, that's Maxwell now. Not the guy I knew in college. Back then, he wanted medicine affordable for everyone. His mom died because they couldn't afford insulin. Did he ever tell you that?" Victoria shook her head. Maxwell never spoke of his past, only of his future. "He grew up with nothing," Julian continued. 3 jobs to get through Princeton. Brilliant, but driven by fear of being powerless again. They kept running into each other. Julian's sister's appointments often overlapped with Victoria's. While she sat alone, Julian would quietly move over, keeping her company. He never pushed, never pried, just offered steady, unwavering presence. The crisis hit at 32 weeks. Victoria woke at 2 a.m., sharp pains radiating through her abdomen, pressure unlike anything before. Her doctor ordered immediate admission, possible early labor. The twins were in distress. She called Maxwell, straight to voicemail. His Tokyo hotel? Checked out 2 days prior, no forwarding info. Jennifer's phone rang endlessly before routing to an automated office message. Victoria spent 6 harrowing hours alone, hooked to monitors, listening to her baby's rapid heartbeats, fear tightening her chest. Nurses asked if anyone was coming. She lied each time, whispering, "Soon." At hour 7, Julian appeared at the doorway, dusted with grime from the construction site, boots caked, hard hat in hand. Word had traveled. Through Jennifer, through mutual friends, to Julian. "I'm sorry," Victoria began, tears finally breaking free. "You don't have to." "Stop," Julian said firmly, pulling a chair beside her bed, eyes steady, presence unwavering. "Someone needs to be here for you." Maxwell should be, but he's not. So I am. He stayed for 3 days. When Victoria needed ice chips, Julian fetched them. When contractions hit in relentless waves, he coached her breathing, steady and calm. When doctors discussed delivering the twins early, He asked the questions Victoria was too scared to voice. "Why are you doing this?" she asked the second night, exhausted, trembling. "Because it's right," Julian said simply. "Because you deserve better than being alone." "Because these babies deserve someone who shows up on day 3, Maxwell finally called, not Victoria's phone, but the hospital's main line. The nurse relayed his message, confusion in her voice. "Your husband wants to know if the situation has stabilized. He'll be in meetings for the next 48 hours, but asks that you email updates to his assistant." Email updates about his unborn children's potential crisis. At this point, who would you call? Julian, or keep trying Maxwell? Shocking fact, 1 in 5 fathers miss their child's birth due to work. But what Maxwell did when Victoria actually went into labor, that was beyond unforgivable. That was abandonment at its cruelest. February 15th, 3 a.m., Victoria woke to lightning shooting through her abdomen. These weren't practice contractions. They were sharp, deliberate, demanding attention. The twins had chosen their day. Muscle memory made her grab her phone, dialing Maxwell. 1 ring, then voicemail. She tried again. No ring. He had declined. Shaking, she called his office emergency line. The one he promised was always answered. Jennifer's voice came, thick with sleep and something else. Maybe shame. "Mrs. Caldwell," Jennifer said. "I'm in labor. I need Maxwell now." Paper shuffled. "Mr. Caldwell is in Switzerland. The Steinberg merger is at a critical juncture. He said to keep him informed. Developments." Victoria gasped through another contraction. "I'm having his children. I'll try to reach him, but he's in negotiations." Victoria hung up. She knew exactly where she ranked on Maxwell's priority list. Below quarterly projections, below stock valuations. Her next call answered on the first ring. "Victoria?" Julian's voice was alert, awake, ready. "The babies are coming." "I'm on my way. Everything's going to be okay." 20 minutes later, he burst through the hospital doors, jacket thrown over pajamas, hair sticking every which way. But he was there. Present. Real. Dr. Winters examined Victoria immediately. "You're progressing fast." These twins are eager to meet the world. The hours blurred, contractions crashing like relentless waves. Julian never left her side. When the anesthesiologist readied the epidural, Victoria panicked at the needle. "Look at me," Julian said, cupping her face. "Just look at me. You're the strongest person I know. You've got this." The epidural worked, but then monitors flashed alarming patterns. Twins' heart rates dropped with each contraction. "Emergency C-section," Dr. Winters announced. "The babies are in distress." Everything moved in a whirlwind. Nurses prepared Victoria, wheeled her toward the OR. At the door, one paused, looking at Julian. "Is Dad coming in?" Everyone knew who Victoria's husband was. Maxwell Caldwell, magazine covers, business journals, hospital plaques. Not him. "He's not," Victoria started. "If Victoria is okay with it," Julian said gently, "I'd like to be there." She nodded, voice choked by emotion. In the OR, Julian stayed by her head, guiding her through every sensation, every sound. "First baby coming, Doctor," Winters announced. A cry filled the room, strong, defiant, alive. "It's a boy, 6 pounds 2 ounces. Before she could process, another cry joined. "And here's his sister, 5 pounds 8 ounces. Julian wept openly, not hiding a thing. "Victoria, they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect." The nurse brought the babies over, cleaned and swaddled, their tiny faces scrunched in protest at the bright, cold world. Would Dad like to cut the umbilical cords? That word again. Dad. Julian looked at Victoria, question in his eyes. "Please," she whispered. His hands shook as he took the scissors. Later, nurses would tell Victoria they'd rarely seen someone who wasn't the biological father show such raw emotion. Julian cut the cords with reverence, almost sacred. "You did it," he repeated to Victoria. "You did it. They're here. They're healthy. You did it." The twins were placed on Victoria's chest for skin-to-skin contact, two tiny humans, complete and perfect. Thomas, she knew immediately, the boy with a grip like he'd never let go. Grace, the miracle girl, calmer, eyes seeking Victoria's face. 12 hours later, Victoria rested in recovery, holding both babies, when her phone rang. Maxwell's ringtone, once sophisticated, now a funeral march. "I heard the delivery went well," Maxwell said. No greeting, no concern, just cold business. "Your children are healthy," Victoria said, trembling. "Would you like their names?" "Unnecessary. My lawyers will handle the arrangements." "Arrangements?" "I've set up trust funds, $10 million each, accessible at 21. They'll want for nothing financially. Except a father." A pause, then his corporate monotone. "They'll be better off without me?" "I'm not built for this, Victoria. The company is my child, my legacy. These babies, they deserve someone who can love them the way they need to be loved." "Maxwell, the divorce papers arrive tomorrow. Penthouse is yours, plus a settlement ensuring you'll never work again." "I liked working. I liked who I was before you. Then be her again. Without me?" Click. Victoria stared at the phone, at her babies, at Julian, who returned with coffee and hadn't left since delivery. "He's not coming," she said. Not a question. Julian set down the cup, gently took Thomas, calming him instantly. "No," Julian said softly, rocking him, "but I'm not going anywhere." In that room, with monitors beeping and babies cooing, the man who wasn't their father holding them like they were everything, Victoria realized. The family you choose can be stronger than the one you're given. True to his word, the divorce papers arrived the next morning. Not one lawyer, but three, uneasy as they stood in the hospital corridor with briefcases worth more than most cars. "Mrs. Caldwell," the lead attorney began, "Mr. Caldwell insists the terms are non-negotiable, but generous." Generous. Abandonment with a price tag. The terms were staggering. Manhattan penthouse, $15 million. Floor-to-ceiling windows and Italian marble. $50 million cash settlement. $10 million trust funds per twin. Monthly support of $100,000 until age 18. "He's buying his guilt away," Julian said as Victoria reviewed the papers, holding Grace while Thomas slept. "Maybe," Victoria replied, signing not for money but for freedom. Freedom from waiting for Maxwell. Freedom to build a real life for her children. The media explosion was instant and merciless. "Billionaire abandons family for business," screamed the New York Post. "Pharmaceutical king chooses pills over children," declared the Daily News. Paparazzi camped outside, bribing staff, offering 6 figures for exclusives. Victoria gave them nothing. Cornered, she said only, "We wanted different things. I wish him well." No anger, no bitterness, just quiet dignity that frustrated journalists expecting a scorned woman seeking revenge. Maxwell responded only through his PR team. "The dissolution of our marriage is a private matter. I ask that the media respect the privacy of all parties involved, especially the children." Then he vanished, relocating permanently to Switzerland to oversee his European expansion. Meanwhile, Julian became a constant in their new life. Every morning at 7, he arrived with breakfast, knowing Victoria would forget to eat while tending newborns. He learned the difference between Thomas's demanding, rhythmic cries and his tired, hiccuping ones. Grace needed rocking in a figure 8, not back and forth, and she only slept to a soft hum of Moonlight Sonata. With his architect's precision, Julian baby-proofed the penthouse like a fortress. Corner guards on every surface, cabinet locks installed perfectly, outlets sealed with medical-grade covers. He created zones. Feeding station here, changing area there, play space with perfect sightlines from the kitchen. They won't be mobile for months, Victoria teased, watching him test a drawer lock for the 5th time. Better safe than sorry, Julian replied quietly. They deserve protection, even from things that might never happen. Late-night feedings became ritual. Victoria took one twin, Julian the other, sitting in the living room at 3 a.m., city lights their only glow, whispering about everything and nothing. "Tell me about your sustainable housing project," Victoria said, and Julian's eyes lit up as he described communities where single parents could afford dignity, where children had safe places to play, where architecture served humanity. "Tell me about your favorite patient," he countered, and Victoria shared stories of children fighting impossible odds, families showing her true strength. 6 months passed, then 7, 8. The twins grew from fragile newborns to babbling, curious babies. Thomas was bold, always reaching beyond his grasp. Grace observed quietly, studying before engaging. The moment that changed everything came at 9 months. Julian played peekaboo with Thomas, hands covering his face, then revealing himself with exaggerated boos that sent Thomas into giggles. On the 5th round, Thomas looked at Julian, grinned, and said clearly, "Dada." The room fell silent. Julian froze, hands half covering his face. Victoria's heart stopped, then raced. "I'm sorry," Julian stammered, lowering his hands. "I know I'm not. I shouldn't have." "Julian," Victoria interrupted, "you've been here every day for 9 months. You've changed more diapers than most fathers do in a lifetime. You sing them to sleep, worry when they cough, celebrate when they roll over. If they want to call you Dada—" Grace, not to be outdone, crawled to Julian, pulled herself up using his leg, looked him in the eyes with Victoria's serious expression, and said, "Dada?" Julian broke. Tears streamed as he gathered both babies, looking at Victoria with wonder, fear, and hope all at once. "I love them," he said, voice breaking. "I love all 3 of you. I didn't plan this. I came to help a friend, to do what Maxwell should have done, but somewhere between the first diaper and the 1,000th bottle, this became my family. You became my family. If you'll have me," Victoria moved to the floor, arms wrapping around all 3. "We already have you, Julian. The question is, will you have us? Before judging, ask yourself, who's the real father? The one providing DNA from Switzerland, or the one providing comfort at 3 a.m.? The one writing checks, or the one checking for fevers? Keep watching, because when Maxwell returns to New York 11 months later, everything you think you know about family is about to be overturned." 11 months after abandoning his family in the delivery room, Maxwell Caldwell returned to New York. His face graced the cover of Forbes. The $6 billion man, How Maxwell Caldwell Conquered European Pharma. The article lauded his ruthless efficiency, laser focus, and ability to separate personal life from professional gain. He called Julian first, not Victoria. Harvard Club, tomorrow, 7 p.m. No greeting, no explanation. Just a command, as if scheduling a board meeting. Julian agreed, stomach twisting. He hadn't spoken to his former best friend since before the twins were born. The Harvard Club looked unchanged from their college days. Dark wood, leather chairs, men making decisions affecting millions while sipping whiskey costing more than a week's wages. Maxwell sat in their old corner, McAllen, 25 in hand. Older, successful, certainly. His suit $30,000, watch more, but his eyes felt hollow, like a beautiful building with no life inside. "You've been spending time with Victoria and the twins," Maxwell said abruptly. "I have." "Are you in love with her?" Julian met his gaze. "Yes." Maxwell nodded, swirling his whiskey. "And the children?" "Well, they're perfect. Smart, healthy, happy. Thomas looks like you, same stubborn chin, same intensity." Something flickered on Maxwell's face, regret, pain, longing, but vanished immediately. "I need you to understand something," Maxwell said, voice clinical, detached. "I'm not a villain. I know exactly what I am, a man who chose his empire over his family, but I also know what I'm not, a father. You could have been." "No," Maxwell said instantly. "I would have destroyed them. Maybe not intentionally, but destroyed them nonetheless. Treated them like business ventures, measured their worth in achievements, scheduled their affection into quarterly reviews. They deserve better than that. They deserved their father," Julian said quietly. "No," Maxwell corrected. "They deserved a father. There's a difference, and from what I hear, they have one now." The conversation shifted. Maxwell had signed away parental rights, clearing the path for Julian to adopt if Victoria wished. He asked only one thing: annual updates, photos of the twins, not for sentiment but to ensure his financial provisions were sufficient. "You want to know your children through email attachments?" Julian asked, disbelief clear. "I want to know they're thriving without me," Maxwell said, "that my absence is a gift, not a wound." Julian understood. The only love Maxwell Caldwell could express, through distance, removal, and accepting his own limits. 2 weeks later, Julian proposed to Victoria. No flash mob, no viral spectacle, no public performance. They sat on the couch after the twins' bedtime, reviewing Julian's latest project, a sustainable apartment complex for single-parent families, safe play areas, community gardens, affordable units. "This is beautiful," Victoria said, tracing the blueprints. "These families will have real homes." "I want to build a life with you," Julian said, pulling a simple solitaire ring from his pocket. "Elegant, real, not for show. Not because you need me, or the twins need a father, but because I can't picture a future without all three of you." Victoria looked at the ring. Then Julian's face, open, honest, vulnerable. "You've taught me love isn't grand gestures or perfect timing," he continued. "It's showing up every day. Staying when leaving is easier, building something real, lasting, meaningful." "Yes," Victoria said. "Yes, of course, yes." 3 months later, their wedding took place in the hospital chapel where Victoria had worked. Dr. Winters got ordained online for the occasion. "After delivering those babies and witnessing this love story, I earned the right to make it official." The twins, now walking unsteadily, served as ring bearers. Thomas, true to form, tried to eat his ring pillow halfway down the aisle. Grace decided crawling was faster than walking and dropped to all fours, her little dress dragging as she speed-crawled toward the altar. Guests, mostly hospital staff who'd witnessed Victoria's journey, construction workers from Julian's sites, and a handful of mutual friends, laughed and cried in equal measure. This wasn't a wedding for magazines or social media. This was a family making itself official, declaring that love isn't about DNA or destiny, but about choice. "Do you, Julian Morrison, take Victoria and her children to be your family?" Dr. Winters asked, going off script. "I already have," Julian replied, scooping up Thomas before he could wander into the flower arrangements. "Every day for the past year. This is just paperwork." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Grace stood shouting "Da-da" at the top of her lungs, causing another wave of joyful chaos. This was their beginning. Not perfect, not pristine, but undeniably real. 6 months later, Julian stood in a Manhattan courthouse signing papers that would make him officially what he'd already become: a father. The adoption hearing should have been routine. The biological father had relinquished rights, Victoria agreed fully, and Julian had been the primary caregiver since birth. But Judge Patricia Hernandez recognized something special. "Mr. Morrison," she said, reviewing the file, "I've overseen hundreds of adoptions. Rarely do I see documentation this thorough. Daily present since birth, pediatrician records listing you as emergency contact, preschool forms with your signature. You didn't just step up, you never stepped back." "Your Honor," Julian replied, bouncing Grace on his hip while Thomas played with his tie. "These children gave me purpose I didn't know I was missing. People say they're lucky to have me, but I'm the lucky one. Family isn't about blood. It's about being there when it matters." Judge Hernandez signed the papers with a smile. "Case approved. Congratulations, Mr. Morrison, though it seems congratulations are 2 years overdue." 5 years later, the Morrison family lived in a Brooklyn brownstone Julian had renovated himself. Not a marble penthouse, but a home with crayon marks on walls and a height chart carved into the kitchen door. Every inch breathed life. Victoria returned to nursing part-time in the NICU at Brooklyn Methodist, specializing in families with premature births, understanding their fear and isolation. Colleagues often remarked on her ability to calm parents facing impossible situations. "You just know what to say," one nurse observed after Victoria reassured a hysterical mother whose twins had arrived at 28 weeks. "I know what it feels like to be alone in that fear," Victoria replied. "Sometimes you just need someone to stay." Thomas, now 5, inherited Maxwell's brilliant mind, filtered through Julian's emotional intelligence. He solved math problems beyond his grade but noticed classmates' sadness and shared his lunch without being asked. His teacher called him gifted, but more importantly, kind. Grace had been an artist from the moment she could hold a crayon. The fridge displayed her latest masterpiece, 4 stick figures under a rainbow. "That's us," she'd tell anyone. "Mommy, Daddy, Thomas, and me. We're a family." They understood the truth in terms a 5-year-old could grasp. "You have 2 fathers," Victoria explained on their 4th birthday. "One gave you life but knew he couldn't give you what you needed. So he made sure you had another father who could. Time, hugs, bedtime stories, love." "Why couldn't the first father do those things?" Thomas asked. "He knew his limitations," Julian answered carefully, "like how you know you're not ready to drive." He knew he wasn't ready to be a daddy. That was actually very brave. "Is he sad?" Grace wondered. "Maybe, sometimes," Victoria answered honestly. "But he knows you're happy and loved, and that makes him feel better." They never painted Maxwell as a villain. He was simply a man who made a choice, and that choice led them to Julian, who chose them every single day. One afternoon in Central Park, Victoria spotted him. Maxwell stood near the reservoir, observing from a distance as the twins climbed the monkey bars. He looked the same expensive suit, but something had shifted. Less rigid, more reflective, their eyes met across the green expanse. Victoria instinctively moved to gather the children, but hesitation held her. Maxwell didn't approach. He simply watched Thomas help Grace reach the bars, Julian standing ready below to catch them if they slipped. For a long, silent moment, Maxwell studied the family that might have been his. Then he nodded once, in approval, in farewell, in acknowledgement of what Julian had become. Without another word, he turned and vanished into the crowd of joggers and tourists. Victoria never mentioned it to Julian. Some moments belonged only to those who lived them. Their life wasn't glamorous. Sunday mornings meant pancake batter splattered on the ceiling because Thomas insisted on flipping them. It meant Grace's dance recitals, where she forgot half the routine but smiled anyway, and Julian applauding like she'd performed at Lincoln Center. It meant Thomas's science fair project on sustainable architecture, like Daddy Builds, winning second place and earning a standing ovation from Julian. It meant budget debates, new school shoes or fixing the leaky roof. Shoes always won because the kids came first. "Do you ever regret it?" Victoria asked one evening, watching the twins construct a fort in the living room. "We could have lived in that penthouse. The kids could have had anything they wanted." "They do have everything they want," Julian replied, pulling her close. "Parents who show up at every school play, know every bedtime story, check for monsters under the bed. That penthouse was walls and windows. This is home." Thomas ran over, grabbing Julian's hand. "Daddy, come see. We made the fort stronger, like your buildings." Grace tugged Victoria's sleeve. "Mommy, We need snacks for our fort meeting." Pulled into the chaos of cushions and blankets, Victoria thought about the journey that brought them here. Abandonment had felt like an ending, but it was the start of something greater. The billionaire who walked away had inadvertently given them more than money, a father who stayed. Money could buy trust funds, private schools, European vacations, but not Julian reading Where the Wild Things Are with voices for each character, not Victoria knowing exactly how Grace liked her sandwiches or how Thomas needed his nightlight positioned. Present love versus absent wealth. There was no contest. The defining moment came on an ordinary Saturday in Prospect Park. Julian taught the twins to ride bicycles, real ones, no training wheels. Victoria watched from a bench, her heart full as Julian ran behind them, arms outstretched, ready to catch them if they wobbled. "Don't let go, Daddy," Grace called, pedaling fiercely. "I've got you," Julian promised, releasing her grip slowly so she could balance on her own. Thomas, competitive as ever, was 3 feet ahead. "Look, I'm doing it, Mommy. Look." "You're doing amazing," Victoria cheered, watching Julian dart between them, everywhere at once. Grace wobbled, nearly fell, but regained balance. Thomas circled back beside his sister, and for one perfect moment, both twins pedaled on their own, Julian running behind with the triumphant smile that only appeared when he looked at his family. This was love distilled. Not princes or towers, not viral proposals or marble palaces. Love was Julian's alarm at 2 a.m. because Grace had a nightmare. Teaching Thomas to tie his shoes for the 100th time. Victoria and Julian choosing each other, choosing this family every single morning. Real love was in daily choices. Staying when leaving would be easier. Reading one more bedtime story when exhausted. Showing up for every scraped knee, every school play, every moment that mattered. And all the ones that didn't seem to matter but did. Because showing up, that's what made a parent. Not DNA, not legal documents, not blood tests. Showing up when they're sick, showing up when they're afraid, showing up when they triumph and when they stumble. Just showing up. Family by choice, not by chance. That's what the Morrisons had built. The abandonment in that delivery room, the moment Maxwell chose his empire over his newborns, had felt like devastation. But it became the spark for something extraordinary. It revealed Victoria's hidden strength. It revealed Julian's capacity for love he never expected to give. It gave Thomas and Grace a father who chose them intentionally, actively, every single day. Money can't buy presents. Maxwell's billions couldn't purchase what Julian gave freely. His time, his attention, his entire heart. Love isn't written on checks or counted in a bank account. Love is action. Daily, consistent, often exhausting action. Home isn't a $15 million penthouse. Home is people who choose you, who stay, who show up even when it's hard, especially when it's hardest. So I ask you, what defines a real father? The man sending checks from Switzerland, or the one checking under the bed for monsters at 2 a.m.? Share this story with someone who needs the reminder that families built by choice are as real, as powerful, as enduring as those built by blood. And remember, sometimes the deepest abandonment leads to the most extraordinary beginnings. Subscribe. If you believe that love isn't about DNA, it's about showing up, because in the end, that's all that matters. Who showed up?